Everywhere, GBS.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to The Insight, where we are here to elucidate on issues and matters, politics, even as you are making your decision 2022. 9th of August was the day when everyone, at least the voters, the Kenyan voters, went to the polling stations to choose their president, to choose their senators, governors, and all the leaders that they would have wanted for themselves. Well, days have come where we are getting leaders, our leaders, the ones that we actually had elected. But even as we wait for the presidential results to be released, which actually, according to the IBC, there is a neck-to-neck tie, a neck-to-neck competition between the top presidential contenders, that is Raila Amolo Odinga and William Samoei Ruto. Who will it be? Will it be Raila Odinga, man who has vied for 5 times? Will it be the first-time runner, William Ruto? Well, that is for us to wait and see. But even as we wait for who becomes the president, there is a question that arises. The question that critically arises is who will have the control of the parliament? Will it be the one who will be the president-elect? Well, will it be, how will it actually affect the person? Because actually, it will be good for them. But what the other person, the opposition, has the control to the parliament? That is a critical question that we would like to look into in our conversation tonight. But that is not only what we are going to discuss. We want to look at the Mudavadi factor in the Western, how they voted. We want to look at how issues are, even this delay about having the presidential results. Well, welcome to The Insight once again. This deliberate conversation is for you to understand. Of course, we educate you here through the eyes of different stakeholders. And on The Insight tonight, we have an advocate of the High Court, Mr. Eric Naibe. Thank you so much for coming to the show and accepting my invite to this show. But first of all, let me ask you, how was your day before we begin the conversation, sir?
Thank you very much, Eugene. My
Yes.
day was great.
Yes.
I came back from Trans-Nzoia County, where I had gone to exercise my constitutional and civic right. So I'm happy. I'm glad to be here today. Yes.
Is it just your right or also a responsibility for you to vote? Because actually, there's something that actually happened in this election, quite conspicuous, and that is voter apathy. What do you think about it, if we start from there?
I think this time around there was a challenge. Kenyans communicated something.
Okay.
The fact that we had around 64% voter turnout, I'm not sure whether it is 64 or 65, it speaks a lot. It is either Kenyans are tired and they are not buying these political narratives, and they think that this is this electoral process, this entire exercise is not really about them. That is why they could not sacrifice their time to go and vote. And also maybe there are other factors. For instance, if you look at voter turnout in terms of regions, it varied. There are regions which had factors that motivated them to go and vote. For instance, Rift Valley, we can say because the candidate comes from there. Central, this time round, we had I think it recorded a lower voter turnout compared to the previous elections. Maybe the reason is because one of their own was not on the ballot. So, but I believe the first one is the main reason. Many Kenyans didn't buy these political narratives. And because of the biting economic situation, most of them, either they were not able to travel from the cities, from the towns to the villages, or they were in the villages and they never had any motivation to go and vote because of constant lies by politicians and promises that are not fulfilled. Yes. I was in Kitale a day after the elections, and I saw how business activities were going on, as if nothing had happened the previous day. People voted. Even on the election day, many businesses were open. Kenyans are more concerned about what they were going to eat in the evening than what this entire process was about. I think it is more about the economic situation in the country than it is about any other reason.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, quite interesting. But there's also something that I want us to delve into,
yes.
and that is, which is quite unprecedented in compared to other elections that we've had. I juxtapose the elections that we have had, and of course with this one that we are having in 2022,
yes.
and there is something that conspicuously come out, and that is the delay in the process in conveying the presidential results.
Yes.
And let me just ask you, why is this delay, according to you?
I don't think there is a delay. Constitutionally and legally, IEBC has 7 days, a maximum of 7 days.
If you just contrast with
yes.
other days, yeah?
Yes, 7 days.
At the time.
And this time round, IEBC decided to make the process as transparent as possible. The website was availed, the documents, the forms, Form 34S were availed in their website for anybody who cared to go and check them, download and do the math. IEBC was trying to avoid the pressure that it has had previously to give periodic provisional results. So I don't think there is delay. As we speak right now, these two major political formations have their own figures. They have taken their time. We saw bloggers, we saw leading agents of those two factions giving us updates on what they were doing. They have already downloaded those forms, they have done their math, and they know what the position is. So for us to pile pressure on IEBC, yet at the same time we expect IEBC to do it accurately, not to flout any process in the, especially verification process. We will not be fair to them if we say that we want them to do the math, which has really proved difficult even for us. I've seen Kenyans complain that the process is long, but you had Chebukati saying that these forms are available. If you are keen, just get your phone, get your computer, download, do the math. You will have your provisional results. As long as you don't declare yourself as a winner, it is enough. So if that process was taking that long for these political factions to do their math and to conclude, how about IEBC, which we have mandated and we have given tough conditions? For instance, once these Form 34S are transmitted from the polling stations to the National Tallying Center, they are expected to wait for all returning officers from the 290 constituencies to come with the physical forms, Form 34S and Form 34Bs, to submit them for verification. The verification process itself is long because they have to look at the security features on the forms to confirm that those are the forms that IEBC printed and distributed. Number two, the agents have to be satisfied that these are the forms. They have to compare with what their agents saw in the polling stations. So for us to have a foolproof exercise that cannot be a subject of nullification by the Supreme Court like we saw in 2017, we have to give IEBC time. And I believe they are doing the best they can. And this time around, the fact that they opened the process to anybody who cares to scrutinize and to compare the forms, I think they are doing well.
Naibe, you're talking about transparency, this time in IEBC. And my question actually is, what could have motivated this kind of transparency that is quite unprecedented from the other days? I
think, of course, the first motivation is what we saw in the Supreme Court last time. we had never had an election, a presidential election nullified in Kenya, and I think it was the second one in Africa, if I'm not wrong. And of course, it put IBC on the spotlight. It was embarrassing for them for an election to be nullified on grounds. The main ground was that they refused to open the servers in 2017. Yet there was nothing for them to hide if actually the process was open. So this time round, I think they didn't want to have a repeat of what happened in 2017, where theories theories come up to the effect that there was a formula which some hackers used, the system was hacked, or there is a way it was skewed to favor a given candidate. This time round, the forms are being transmitted from the polling stations instantly, and they are reflecting on the website. If a presidential candidate had agents in all polling stations, they have a chance of comparing what their agents saw and what IBC is displaying and what the returning officer is submitting at the National Tallying Center at Bomas. So I think this is the best. I think if we are able to get an announcement either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow on whom the president is, and we are able to remain peaceful as Kenyans, this will go down in history as the most transparent, the most verifiable, and the most trustworthy election, not only in Kenya, but also in Africa.
You're talking about the most, about transparency still,
yes, yes.
And you're also talking about credibility.
Yes.
And I think that because IBC has conveyed all the information that we need at the website, then you believe that this is transparent.
Yes.
And of course, you have said that both the top presidential contenders can go there, download, and maybe have their results,
yes.
Provisional results.
Yes.
We have seen bloggers from different coalitions declaring who the winner is.
Yes.
The Azimio side declaring Raila Odinga is ahead of Ruto. The other side declaring Ruto is ahead of Raila.
Yes.
And we have seen this in the Twitter and in social media. And of course, there's an extent where we have also seen some supporters of other coalitions even preparing themselves for a presidency. And of course, this is something that is actually bringing in emotions. A lot of emotions are involved, because actually there could be this side actually one of these major coalitions who have prepared themselves mentally for a presidency. If talk of Ruto presidency, talk of Raila presidency, what will happen if tomorrow, or maybe a day after, or whenever it is, that Chebukati Wafula will announce a president, but so happens that it is not the person that their bloggers actually had told them is the winner? What do you think will happen?
I think the danger with this process being open to analysis by anybody, and to even anybody doing the tallying on their own, the danger is that we risk having different results from the same forms, because we have now learned that math is difficult, addition, and this math is purely about adding and calculating the percentages, establishing whether one has done the 50% plus one threshold. But we are getting different figures, mainly because of errors that are human. What I think the danger might be is that supporters might be made to believe that their candidate is going to win, so that when an announcement is made, maybe in 2 days' time or even tomorrow, they might react. But what I'm confident is that these two political factions know the truth. They know the truth. And one of them is lying. When you see those figures being shared constantly, and even preparations being made, I saw yesterday a video of Azimio coalition bloggers showing that they were preparing KICC, they were preparing for the swearing. I don't know whether it was swearing in or announcement. Shortly thereafter, like 5 minutes later, the Kenya Kwanza side also displayed a view of a podium that has been well decorated in readiness for the same thing. And I think this is now the danger with us opening it up to all of us. I think in future we might have to review the law and say that, yes, we are allowing you to do your own tallies, but don't announce. Because the only person that is mandated to announce presidential election results is the chairman of IEBC, Wafula Chebukati. Whatever the bloggers post as final results, those are not official results. They are not legal. And you had Chebukati earlier today, warning them, cautioning them that you are not allowed to declare yourself a winner, because that will cause chaos. So I think in future we might have to maybe regulate the manner in which political parties conduct the entire exercise and make it public. Perhaps we might have to make it like it is still open, you can still do your math, get your figures and hold on. Because of what the danger that it could bring outside here, with people celebrating on both sides, and maybe others being forced to now riot and to believe that maybe the results have been swapped.
But there's also a danger in getting of course, having bloggers, different bloggers, blogging differently, preparing people for something that actually is not yet known. We don't know who yet is the president-elect of Kenya until it is declared by the IEBC chairman, Wafula Chebukati. But even in this neck-to-neck race, Naibai, I want us to focus on something. That is, it is constitutional for the president-elect, before being declared, must attain 50+1 in total tally votes, of course, cast. What do you think? You see, we are seeing a neck-to-neck from what we're seeing with the media, what we are seeing from IEBC. How do you view this, and even having 50+1?
In my opinion, I think this is going to be tight. We were told that the voter turnout was around 65%, which translates to around 14.1 million Kenyans voted. That means for one to be declared president, he must garner at least 7 million, 7 million plus some hundreds of thousands, plus one. What we have seen in terms of what these bloggers have been sharing, and even the media, because we saw Citizen and all leading media stations doing the calculations until sometimes yesterday or earlier today, it was tight. And in the event that none of them achieves 50%+1, I'm seeing a probability of us going for a runoff, which will happen in the next 60 days. And now in the runoff, we will just expect one to lead with a simple majority. It will not be about 50%+1. But the chances of us going for a runoff as we speak are very high, given the numbers that we've seen from both sides. Yes, because I want to believe that these bloggers have been exaggerating the figures to favor them. You saw at one point the figure 50.5% was common with Kenya Kwanza bloggers. At one point, Azimio bloggers was talking about 52%. Then they came to 51. Then it became unclear. That tells you. And you know, as we have said, this is a difficult process. Downloading 46,000 plus forms and zooming out to get the figures that are written using pens. You know, these are forms that were filled at the polling stations, and photographs were taken, they were scanned and uploaded. Getting 46,000 and getting the figures correctly is quite a process. And there are chances also that Form 34Bs, which are filled by returning officers, could be having different figures from those that came from Form 34As. For instance, if a returning officer at the constituency level receives 5 Form 34As for instance, from the polling stations, and he notices that the figure at the bottom is supposed to be 1,000, and yet the presiding officer has written 100, yet the other figures are correct. I want to believe he is allowed to indicate the correct figure at the bottom of the form, so that what we had as Form 34 is scanned and transmitted during the election day to the National Tallying Center might have variances with what Form 34Bs that are being received today are. So I believe the figures IBC are going to issue might be slightly different from what the bloggers have been publishing, from what the media has also been releasing. That is why maybe the possibility of a runoff is there, and the possibility of also one of them crossing the 50% plus one mark is there. Yeah.
I want you to take us back to the process actually.
Yes.
Because actually you're talking about Form 34A,
yes,
Form 34B, and of course we know about Form 34C. Perhaps some of our viewers do not understand the specifics,
yes,
or how these things happen. Yes. We talk about 34A, 34B happened so much in 2017 when we were hearing much of this, but maybe
yes,
there's some people who do not understand this. Maybe if you could maybe elucidate or expand more on this Form 34A, or even the process around it.
So you know, at the polling station we have the presiding officer who is in charge. Once the voting exercise is over, I think the closing time is supposed to be 5 p.m., but they are allowed to extend it depending on factors that come into play. Once the voting exercise is over, the counting process starts. So that this time round it was mandatory that we start with the presidential vote. So once it is counted, the presiding officer reduces the results and records them on a form called Form 34A, which indicates the total number garnered by each candidate, and he signs it in the presence of party, yes, in the presence of the agents of those presidential candidates. Once it is signed, together with all the other results, they are delivered to the constituency level where the returning officer receives them. The returning officer receives Form 34As from all polling stations within the constituency. With respect to the presidential election, Form 34A is not only delivered to the constituency returning officer, it is also scanned instantly at the polling station. It is scanned and transmitted through the KIMS kit before being taken to the constituency tallying center. It is transmitted directly to the National Tallying Center through the KIMS kit. So after transmitting, now all the ballot materials, all the forms with respect to all other positions, elective positions, are delivered at the constituency tallying center. Upon receipt, the constituency returning officer verifies again the forms, all the Form 34As from all the polling stations, and then he is supposed to record them on Form 34B. This is with respect to presidential elections, Form 34B, which again he is supposed to scan and transmit electronically to the National Tallying Center before packing and traveling with the original forms, Form 34S, and now the one Form 34B to the National Tallying Center. The other forms with respect to governor, senator, and women rep are taken to the county tallying center, where the county returning officer records them and declares the winner at the county level. For the member of parliament, member of county assembly, and the presidential position, those ones are handled at the constituency level, with the exception now that the presidential result must be delivered to Bomas. Yes.
Okay, so that is entirely the process.
Yes, that is the process
that surrounds it.
Yes.
But talking about these processes,
yes,
is there any way in which after they reach the returning officer, the national returning officer, that is Wafula Chebukati, is there a possibility of him changing some figures before keying them?
The national returning officer has no mandate to change any of the forms. he cannot change from 34B, he cannot change from 34A. And if we go by what was decided in 2017 in the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court said that the results as announced at the polling station are final with respect to what the presiding officer announces. So that you've heard Chebukati say that they receive those forms, they verify, they do their tallying, and they announce without altering anything. If there is any mistake on those Form 34As, then those mistakes are supposed to be handled at a different level. If you are the one affected by those mistakes, then those will form grounds of you lodging a petition before the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Naibei. Actually, we are still in this conversation. We are talking about a lot of things, actually, issues around the elections 2022. And it is neck to neck. That is according to the results. And of course, the results are being tallied across the country. Of course, he's trying to explain how from 34A, from 34A, from 34B, and what actually from 34C is, and the process around the tallying of electoral results. Well, I'm here with Naiboi, who is an advocate of the High Court. We are still on the inside talking about these issues. Well, 21144 is our SMS line. At GBS TV Africa, at Eugene Kwach, you get to talk to us, converse with us. Of course, we are doing this for you. Well, we're going for a short break, but when will we be back? We will be back with more.
GBS.
Welcome back to The Insight with Eric Naibei, of course, one of the stakeholders, just to make you understand things around the decision 2022. And Naibei, on this conversation, I want us to shift our conversation a bit and talk about the supremacy of the parliament. You see, as I understand it, for one to achieve their manifesto, hence the vision for Kenya as a president, they have to have the control of the parliament, be it as a National Assembly or in the Senate, for the budget or other issues to pass through. What happens if the president is not the one who is in control of the parliament?
Eugene, if the president is not in control of parliament, definitely his development agenda is going to be grounded in that budgets are not going to be passed. His, of course, cabinet proposals on what to do, what to prioritize that must go to parliament will be frustrated. And I think this election up to this stage today has clearly, it is starting to come out clear that there will be an issue with who controls which house. Because as we speak, there are indications which are not verified that already Kenya Kwanza could be having control of the Senate. When it comes to the National Assembly, if you looked at the Daily Nation today morning, it was showing that Azimio is quite ahead in terms of numbers in the National Assembly. This is going to be interesting because if we will have a president who cannot control, for instance, especially the National Assembly, then that is going to be a problem. Either the president will have to sit down with those members of parliament in those other parties and convince them to cross the floor, or he will have to find a way of surviving. Otherwise, he might even be impeached because there are chances again of members of parliament in one coalition crossing to the other coalition that is not forming government. So without parliament, without support of the parliament, there is little that a president can do because the budget is formulated, of course, through the Ministry of Finance, National Treasury, but it is approved by Parliament. So that if that one is not approved, there is clearly nothing the President can do or implement in terms of his development agenda in the respective manifestos. Yes.
So as it stands, Kenya Kwanza controls the Senate?
There were indications during the day that already Kenya Kwanza has around 24 senators and Azimio had 22. Whether that one is final or not, it will still come out. If you looked at the Daily Nation today morning, it was saying that Kenya Kwanza has around 119 members of National Assembly, when Azimio had 133. 134, yes. And they were pending around 85 pending results.
Some 9 independent.
Yes, 9 independent, yes. So we don't know how it will go, but if it is still going to one coalition that is not going to form the president, to produce the president, then that is going to, I'm foreseeing a scenario where we might even have a handshake for the president who is going to be elected to be able to run government. He must have to approach the leader of the other coalition for truce and maybe to enable him pass bills in Parliament.
I know we will be having this conversation in the course of the politics of Kenya, as we see how the terrain will come along, because we will need to have a president first, but thereafter we'll know how the politics of Kenya will actually shape. But there's actually something that crops up even as we talk about Parliament, and that is it affects actually the Parliament thereafter. This Parliament, we are the 14th Parliament, right?
Yes.
The 14th Parliament and even the subsequent Parliament, it affects the way they will be engaging or performing. And that is one thing that, or even, I don't know whether to call it a law, but the Supreme Court declared the CDF fund illegal. Yes. Because it's actually, it interferes with the separation of powers. I want you to actually explain to us how the CDF fund interferes with the separation of powers.
The CDF fund is unconstitutional, and the main reason is that it gave members of parliament an opportunity to oversee and to be in charge of a fund which is supposed to execute some functions at the constituency levels. Ideally, a government is, and of course in practice, a government should have three arms: the executive, the judiciary, and the parliament. The executive performs the role of executing, doing the actual work. Parliament enacts laws and keeps the executive in check, and the other arms. The judiciary interprets law and resolves disputes. So if you are now giving a legislature guys who are enacting laws, guys who are approving bills, approving budgets, and are supposed to be checking the executive, you are giving them an executive role through CDF, that amounts to an illegality. Because how can a member of parliament sit, decide on a budget, and they even decide on what to allocate to CDF? They allocate a lot of money to CDF, then they go ahead to be the persons, they call themselves patrons. After 2013, I think, they are patrons. So they are the ones who are deciding how this fund is spent, and they even dictate how tenders are awarded for construction of schools, etc. So how can you be legislating, making a law? You are supposed to be keeping the executive in check while executing those executive functions. But again, you are stealing one of the executive functions so that you look like you are in both sides. You are a legislator and you are also in the executive. So that is what the Supreme Court, in simple terms, was saying no to. So that now going forward, we expect members of parliament whose role is ideally roles, they should be threefold: legislation, oversight, and representation. And they can perform that excellently if they are concentrating on that. But if we are giving them executive functions again, that is not, it should not be. Yeah.
Okay, you're talking about the role of the members of parliament.
Yes.
To be oversight, to be legislation
and representation. Yes.
Which is quite interesting and well, okay.
Yes.
But the members of parliament, as we know them today, members of parliament are people who have maybe built their names through CDF money by saying, I will build schools, I will offer these people bursary, or I will do this and this through the CDF fund. We're now seeing a parliament which do not have, members of parliament who do not have the CDF money. How will the common mwananchi, the whole hoi polloi, gauge how this person works? Because they have always gauged the way a member of parliament works based on the number of roads or the schools they have built or the allocation of bursary. How will we gauge how a member of parliament now works?
I think henceforth, citizens should now gauge performance of members of parliament in the way they debate bills in parliament, in the manner in which they hold the executive in check. For the case of senators, of course, in the manner in which they hold the county government in check. For quite a long time, we had been conditioned to believe that a member of parliament who is performing is the one who is seen to be constructing so many classrooms here and there, buying, purchasing buses for every school. That should not have been the case. We have a county government which has an executive role. We have the national government which now has the cabinet that has structures that cascade downwards that should be performing these roles. For instance, building of schools. This should be a function of the Ministry of Education, not members of parliament. At the county level, we have an executive, the county executive committee, and we always have in every county there is education. There is a sector for education. Ideally, they should be in charge of those schools, I think pre-nursery schools and kindergartens and preschool, so that we don't expect a member of parliament to build schools, yet the schools are being controlled by the ministry, by the Ministry of Education, which is an executive arm of government. So henceforth, I think citizens again will have to be conditioned to, and we will not now be voting for members of parliament on the basis of their promises, maybe to construct roads, because that is not their role, promising to build schools or even to build police stations, because I think the CDF Act of 2013 gave them two main roles, education and security. Security, again, is a function of the interior, yes, national government. Why give members of parliament a fund to go and look like they are also in charge of security? So going forward, I think citizens will get used to. And I think most of these members of parliament, if we are going to follow this Supreme Court judgment, most of the members of parliament who have been elected the other day are not going to be re-elected, because they were elected on the platform of these promises. They were promising to build schools, to give out bursaries, and maybe going forward in 2027, we will now be looking for other qualities. We will be looking for debaters, people who know, who understand bills, people who can represent the interests of their people, people who can hold the executive in check. For instance, if those developments are not coming to your region, schools are not being constructed, schools are being left to, for instance, classrooms are not being constructed. Your role as a member of parliament will be to raise that voice in parliament and through other avenues, not to get funds and come and not to allocate funds through the CDF. Yeah.
I like actually how you're bringing this out, and of course there's two questions that actually what you say begs. It begs two questions. First of all is does the common mwananchi, you see, the common mwananchi has always known this member of parliament as a person who will be building schools. They'll take the children when they do not have school fee for bursaries. How will it shape also the mind? How will the common man be conditioned also to believe that this member of parliament that you're going to elect, this member of parliament is not going to build schools or give bursaries, but this member of parliament has other roles to perform?
I believe, you know, when we say that now CDF is unconstitutional, those functions will still be performed. Only that now this time they will not be performed by members of parliament. Common mwananchi will be told. He will be told that the person in charge of education is the ministry, and the person to hold the ministry in check is your member of parliament. So that even as we elect them knowing that, expecting them to do that which the law now mandates them to do. And of course focus will shift. This entire craze of every person wanting to vie for member of parliament, I think it is going to end. We will have very few people being interested in being members of parliament, for the main reason that this CDF has been removed. Because if you look at most of the aspirants around, the motivation is control of this CDF fund, which is roughly 100 million per year if you look at how they have been allocating through in the 290 constituencies. So in 2027, if this law is going to be kept, to be implemented, we will see candidates who will come up wanting to vie for member of parliament, and the motivation will be different. It will not be about control of these funds. It will be about them having the passion of their people to represent their voice at the national level.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, the fact that the member of parliament in this and subsequent parliament will be someone who will not be controlling CDF, therefore will not be doing bursaries, will not be doing roads and security, as you've said, but this is a person who will be lobbying for resources for his people, a person who will be doing oversight, and a person who will also be holding the national government in check. Well, understanding these too well, it therefore means that the role of a member of parliament needs someone who is savvy and understands issues to do with economy of his people, and also issues to generally to that pertains to his people. And this person therefore must be fluent and eloquent in the language, because we use Kiswahili and English at the parliament level.
Sure.
Do you think, or do you believe now that the question, because actually when you talk about being fluent, being an orator, being a good debater, then it means you need content also.
Sure.
You need to be savvy with all these issues.
Sure.
Therefore, it means you need to be educated.
Sure.
Does this now begs the question about the qualification of member of parliament having a degree? Will it now arise that we need a person who, not just any person, but we need a member of parliament who has a degree, a person who is educated, who is savvy with these issues? And even we have had in some other areas where we have members of parliament who have got degrees, but these degrees are not verifiable. So how will you go along this? Because there are those people who can actually debate, who are so eloquent, yet they do not have a degree. And so going forward, will the question of a degree arise?
Sure. I think this is now the perfect time when we need to look at, to relook on qualifications of a member of parliament. Mm-hmm. We had a law that we enacted, the Elections Act, that provided that a member of parliament should be a degree holder. Mm-hmm. But of course, it was suspended by members of parliament. Mm-hmm. It was suspended indefinitely. Mm-hmm. And the explanation that we've been receiving from analysts and even from some members of parliament has been that you don't need to have a degree for you to take development to your people. But now that the roles are going to be now confined, they are going to be clearer. I think it is going to be mandatory for us to have members of parliament who can communicate in both English and Kiswahili. Yes, in the National Assembly we allow debates in Kiswahili, but you find that even those members of parliament who don't know English, most of them struggle in Kiswahili because they are illiterate. So it is now time for us to, I think, to implement this, maybe in the next 5 years. And even the issue of salaries, the issue of salaries of members of parliament. If we can now review it so that the salaries reflect, are proportional to the roles and even to the academic qualifications that we are now going to give them. I'm not saying we add the salaries. What they earn already is too much compared to other countries. Members of parliament in Kenya earn so much. So now that we are taking away CDF, and now we are saying that a member of parliament should go to parliament to legislate, to represent his people, and to keep the executive in check. Let's have a modest salary. Let it not be that we are paying a member of parliament 1 million shillings to sit between Tuesday and Thursday and to earn an allowance and again earn around 1 million shillings. Yet we have other people with equal qualifications of degrees getting first entry jobs in government and earning less than 100,000 shillings. So I think it is now time for us to relook. SRC, I think, should look at this now that the functions, some functions, unconstitutional functions have now been taken away. Can we now also see what these people earn so that next time we go to elections, we don't have people fighting to be members of parliament with the main intention of enriching themselves illegally. Yes.
Well, quite interesting, but there are also other issues that actually come out from what you've talked about. That is, number one, you've talked about still the qualifications. And let us delve still into it. About qualifications, there are those people who cannot speak well, but of course they have degrees. They have degrees,
yes,
but they cannot actually articulate issues fluently and eloquently. What do we do with these people? And how does now a person who goes to a citizen or the hoi polloi, the common man, How must he be convinced? How can we, because actually there are those people who can speak their languages so well, but when it comes to English and Kiswahili, they cannot actually articulate issues using these languages. So what do we do?
I believe that we have so many Kenyans at the moment who have gone to school and who can speak English and Kiswahili. If we have a few who can only speak well in their mother tongue, they have opportunities of serving as members of county assembly. They don't have to be members of parliament. And the voter is wise enough to vet them. If somebody has a degree but cannot communicate effectively, voters will see now that they will be voting in a person whom they know the only impactful function they are going to do is through their voice. I believe they will vote somebody who can speak. Even if they have a degree and they cannot speak, I believe voters will be able to judge and they will not vote for them mainly because of having a degree. They will look at all this. I'm happy that this time round, if you look at the caliber of leaders who have been declared yesterday and today as members of parliament and even senators, you can clearly see that voters are more conscious than they were before. They are voting them based on what they have seen in them. For instance, in my county, Trans Nzoia, we now have a women rep and a senator who come from a minority group, the Sabot group, who are minority. Of course, there was no prior agreement among the voters that these are the people we are giving. These are guys, they are young guys who came out, they campaigned. Based on what they spoke, what they told and what they promised people, voters gave them the chance, regardless of their parties, regardless of their ages. And I believe that even when it comes to this issue of qualification, if somebody claims to have a degree and he wants to be elected because of the degree alone, voters are wise enough. They can be able to gauge and to judge who is able to represent them effectively and who is not.
You're talking about the voter being wise enough.
Yes.
I don't know why you make that, but of course we have seen in other scenarios whereby people have been voted in depending on how deep their pockets are.
Sure.
Yeah. So do you still believe that the voter is wise? Because actually money is also involved in all this.
Of
and
course.
actually the politics that we are having as Kenyans is that it's give and take.
Sure.
It is who can give more.
Sure.
From where I come from, they call it Yukojamna. That is like who can give more, like who can give more. So like those people who still have that thought that a person who will obviously, who has got deep pockets, that is a person who then should be voted in. I don't know how you look at this, because actually there's those people who still have the thought, who still have those thoughts actually. What do you think about these people?
I think when it comes to now financial muscle, that is where I think our voters are still lacking, because even today, majority of those who have been elected are those who are able to give out money, more money than than their competitors. Even in my village, you can't contest, you can't ask for any political seat without proving that you can give them handout all the time. So it is something that I think, again, voters will have it will take time for us to overcome. Considering it is a culture, it has become a culture that you need to have money for you to contest. But we have a few cases where we've seen aspirants without money. I can give the example of my good friend Kiborek Ruben from Mogotio constituency in Baringo, a very young man who was elected through a UDA ticket, and at one point he was also, voters were contributing for him. He campaigned, literally, he didn't have a job before that, and he is now a member of parliament. And he was going against a doctor, Dr. Tuitoek, and Professor Helen Sambili, prominent seasoned politicians. Of course, there are other factors here. He was a young man with networks and with a good touch with the people. So as much as the issue of handouts and money, the money factor still plays a key role, there are exceptions. If you come out well, if you come out as somebody who has good intentions, and if you come out as somebody who is in touch with your community, you can still be understood, and they can still spare you the trouble of having to give them money. Yes.
We just hope that the voter gets that.
Yes.
But let me delve into another issue that you also touched on, and that is the SRC reducing the salaries of the members of parliament.
Yes.
The members of parliament actually make the laws. Don't you think that this by the SRC, because actually SRC had removed some allowances, like sitting allowances, from the members of parliament, don't you think that this is beating drums of war between the SRC and the members of parliament?
It is. But the good thing is that as much as members of parliament enact laws, and they even have the power to maybe to debate and even suspend the SRC anytime they want, we have checks, we have the courts, which also hold parliament in check. So, but as we speak at the moment, I think parliament still has an upper hand in terms of deciding what really happens, what is the final position. I saw what SRC did a few days to the elections, and I think that timing was good because most members of parliament were busy campaigning. I'm sure from next month when they convene, perhaps the first agenda will be that issue, and I am sure members of parliament will take issue with that. And it is unfortunate that they might still want to frustrate SRC because of such decisions. I believe that if we get a strong president who can reign on parliament and even especially the majority, whoever is going to be majority in the parliament, in the Senate and National Assembly, there is a way we can still make systems work and allow commissions, independent commissions and institutions like SRC to do their function. We allow courts to do their functions, and so that we don't look like we are reversing things. SRC makes a decision, Parliament comes, passes a motion to remove the chair of SRC because of that decision, replaces with somebody who is compliant with what they want. I think it starts with all the three arms. If the president can be steadfast, if the judiciary can also be steadfast, and the speaker can also be steadfast, we can still have a system that works well.
Oh, interesting. A great conversation that we're having, Eric Naibei. I'll just go for a short break, then come back and, of course, just finish up. Ladies and gentlemen watching at home, well, we have so much issues to discuss here. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the dominance of these political parties. We have seen so many political parties, be it ODM in Nyanza, be it UDA in Rift Valley. They're so dominant. And of course, there is the yellow wave, talking about the waves of these major political parties. Of course, we are going to talk about that right after the break. So, tune in.
GBS.
Thank you so much and welcome back to The Insight. Of course, this is The Insight with Wayne Quach and of course, Eugene Quach. And of course, we are talking about politics. And as we talk about politics, and of course, there's I have Eric Naibei, who is an advocate of the High Court. Advocate of the High Court. Mr. Naibei, there's an issue I actually want us to delve into, and this is the issue of major political parties. We have UDA and ODM. Generally, look at these political parties. We have UDA, which is quite dominant in Rift Valley. ODM quite dominant in Nyanza. My question is, there are those people who actually were given direct tickets, even UDA offering some in central Kenya. Don't you think that this in its own self will deny residents of those places good leadership? Talk about the waves, because there are those people who will always vote the political parties. Yes.
I agree that to a large extent, the issuing of direct tickets to candidates in those regions where the party is predominantly preferred gives those candidates an upper hand. And it looks like once you get that ticket, you are guaranteed, you are assured of being elected. But again, if you look at the criteria that these parties have been using to issue those tickets, you find that they don't just give these direct tickets to candidates who are not popular. There is a formula they use, and mostly the formula is about who is more popular, who has higher chances. And of course, the other factor is who is more loyal to the party, who has been contributing more to the party in terms of finances, in terms of defending the party leader at the national level. So that you don't just get this direct ticket from nowhere. You have to have played a role in the formation of the party, or if not formation, you have been defending the party and the party leader and the party's position everywhere. So that if you look at most of the cases where they have issued direct tickets, you can say that because the party belongs to them, they are actually justified. But on the part of the Mwananchi, who is on the receiving end, I believe that this, of course, denies them the chance to get a leader they would have wanted, because the giving of the direct ticket is a decision of the party leadership. It is not a decision of the people. So once he is given, this is a region, for instance, Rift Valley. Right now, they are in UDA, majority are in UDA, the North Rift, South Rift, and the Kalenjin Rift Valley, and some parts of Central. Once a candidate gets the ticket, there is a way the voter is forced to vote for them, because they believe that you have to vote uniform from president to MCA. And I think that in itself denies citizens an opportunity to choose whoever they wanted to choose. But again, it is something that is difficult to control, because political parties belong to the owners. They don't belong to the people. The people only play a role as stakeholders who can make some small influence. Otherwise, they belong to the owners. Yes.
Going forward, actually, you said that there are times where political parties have sacrificed good leadership in the altar of loyalty, meaning loyalty has been given priority in awarding tickets. Generally, going forward, how can we ensure that we are actually giving tickets to both good leaders and both who are loyal to the party?
I believe this is again something that is grounded in the law, because currently the Political Parties Act that governs the way in which parties run their affairs allows them to give direct tickets, and it allows them to also do nominations. So that now if they choose one, they are allowed, it is within the law. And if we want to force them to take this decision to the people, we might want to remove the clause that allows political parties to give direct tickets and maybe put conditions that before you decide to give a direct ticket, let these and these factors be in place so that it is not something that you just make a decision that in this region we are not doing nominations. Let there be at least some prior process that maybe involves people, that involves consultations with the people. By the time we conclude and say that in this region we are giving direct tickets, at least there is some sense of public participation. At least some members should have contributed, and maybe even if it is in form of surveys. I heard that ODM was doing surveys in some regions before giving direct tickets. The problem is that those surveys were being done secretly. They were not being done in public. They were not coming out to ask people between this and this guy, whom should we give? They were doing them in secret and giving reports to the national office in secret and communicating to the public saying that we have conducted our surveys, we have established that so and so is more popular. But when you look at it critically, you find that the person given the ticket is actually being given the ticket because of loyalty to the party.
Don't you think that at times loyalty actually is more critical and important to a presidential candidate than even good leadership that will be offered to the people? Because
it is, in as much as now representation and numbers in the National Assembly and in the Senate matter, the president is interested in getting people who can stand with him throughout. So that if he leaves it to the people to decide, in most instances you will find that this popular person at the ground, this person who has a better relationship with the voter, could not be as loyal as this person who has been close to the presidential candidate. So for the presidential candidate, of course, loyalty is everything. Then the other things will follow.
Oh, that is great. And us to shift again to another conversation about the Kenya Kwanza agreement between the Kenya Kwanza and of course Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Masika Wetangula. They were to deliver 70% according to the agreement that they were having. They were to deliver 70% of the votes cast of the Western for them to get various plum positions should Kenya Kwanza ascend to presidency. Well, as we are seeing right now, that will never happen. That is not the case in these elections. Therefore, they have not attained 70% according to the agreement. What is now the fate of Moses Masika Wetangula and Musalia Mudavadi? Will their fate in a Kenya Kwanza government depend solely on the goodwill of the president?
First, I don't know whether that clause existed in that agreement because I never had the opportunity to look at that agreement. But when it was said, when it was reported as such, I remember some Kenya Kwanza coalition leaders came out to say that there is no such requirement for these two leaders. But even if it was true, if it is true that they were required to deliver 70%, of course that was a tall order. That was difficult. I want to believe that now the presidential candidate will have to look at the two of them, how they have performed separately. If you look at Moses Wetangula, he has delivered, I think, 64% of Bungoma County. I'm not sure about Musalia Mudavadi, but reports indicate that Raila has won in Kakamega County. Trans Nzoia, Raila also won, although the gap is quite small. So I believe that because of the role they have played around Kenya Kwanza, that of up to March, up to January 2022, Ruto was a lone ranger. He had no coalition, and his politics was around consolidating support around UDA until the Political Parties Amendment Bill was enacted, which now made coalition parties political parties on their own. That is when, if you remember, that is when they now struck a deal and came up with the Kenya Kwanza coalition. It was like an afterthought, and it was like in reaction to what the other side was doing. So I believe Ruto will have to, like you said, it will be upon him now to decide what to give them if they have not achieved what they were supposed to do as per the agreement.
Oh, quite interesting. I don't know what actually will happen, but there's another question that actually all this coalition begs, because Musalia Mudavadi did not just fail to deliver 70% of the Western votes, but even in his own backyard, in his own constituency, a UDA candidate took the seat away from an ANC candidate. Do you think actually that the alliance between ANC and UDA has been affected henceforth? And do you believe that Ruto, that Musalia Mudavadi has actually lost ground to Musalia Mudavadi? If at all this is the case, then how does this affect the alliance now and even in the future?
I agree that Musalia has lost ground from what he had in 2013, 2017, and now. And of course, the reason is not maybe it's not really about him siding with Ruto, but it is about his politics, his personal whatever he has been doing as an individual from those years. It is, even if he was in Raila's side, I want to believe that he was not going to add anything to make anything different. Just like he crossed to Ruto's side, and there is no difference in terms of delivering votes. I believe that this is definitely going to affect the relationship, because those ones surrounding William Ruto will definitely advise him to drop him or to even deny him whatever he had been promised, because I heard that they were to create a prime minister's position, which was to go to Musalia Mudavadi. Now the question right now is, on what basis will you make Musalia Mudavadi a prime minister and deny, for instance, somebody like Moses Wetangula? We have people like even from Ukambani, then Alfred Mutua. You know, they are playing on the same level. All of them are on the same level. In fact, Moses Wetangula at the moment looks like he has delivered more. So I believe that, of course, it will affect their relationship, but Musalia will have to take what is given, because he has no option.
So do you actually conclude that Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula were overly ambitious for signing a 70% deal with Kenya Kwanza?
If at all they signed such a deal, then they were too ambitious, and they were clearly out of touch with the reality, and I think they were biting more than they could chew. So now that the outcome is here, I believe they will be ready to take anything that will be offered to them.
Yes.
Given they don't have any option. Unless now, if the government is going to be formed by Raila Odinga, maybe things might change. They might now, out of this, of course, you will see others cross to the government side. But if William Ruto is going to form government, they will have to toe the line. They will have to accept what will be offered to them. Yeah.
So generally this will affect their alliance, It affects the alliance, but there is a distinction. You know, Kenya Kwanza coalition did not go to the presidential ballot as a coalition. They went as UDA. On the other hand, Azimio, Raila Odinga vied as an Azimio candidate, not as an ODM candidate. So I believe that it will affect the alliance in as far as participation in National Assembly and Senate politics is concerned. But in terms of who is in charge, who is the president, and who is allied to the president, I believe now it is still going to revolve around what Ruto will decide to do with them, with all of them. If you talk about Ruto,
yes,
being the president, and then the fate of Musalia Mudavadi and Masika Wetangula being in the hands of the president, Ruto, don't you think that if at all Musalia Mudavadi will not have actually been satisfied with what he has been given, then will actually go to the other side of the opposition with his members of parliament, and that will actually affect the operation of the government?
Sure. And I think for that to happen, For that to happen, of course, Musalia Mudavadi will have to weigh whatever he will gain from going to the opposition, as opposed to whatever little will be offered while in government. I want to believe that that will be a very delicate balancing act on the part of Musalia or even Wetangula to reach such a decision. If this is a route of presidency and you are being offered something that you feel it is little, unless the harassment has reached a level or the relationship is really broken, I don't think that they will be in a hurry to do that. Unless, again, something is offered to them on the other side, other than just going to the opposition to frustrate the government. And I believe William Ruto, in his wisdom, might not allow such a scenario. Given that even this coalition, look at the coalition, William Ruto, in terms of strength, in terms of his national image, he was not an equal from the word go. So I believe he might want to treat all of them as equals, and he might want to just give them whatever he had promised, regardless of how they performed, how they delivered. I want to believe so.
Okay.
Because, again, there is that danger of him disappointing one of them, maybe 5 members of parliament crossing the floor and tilting the scales in the parliament.
Don't you think that perhaps Musalia Mudavadi could have, maybe at the onset of their agreement, could have asked for more in terms of UDA not actually fielding candidates in maybe his stronghold, to maybe strengthen him?
Sure, but I think another factor is the issue of parties agreeing to zone regions, these coalition parties. I think it became an issue in Azimio. And it is even the reason, part of the reason why Alfred Mutua left, because they were being forced to not to field candidates in some regions. And now Kenya Kwanza, wanting to look different, decided to say that all coalition parties should be allowed to field candidates in all regions. And now they left it to the people to make the decisions. Even when they were campaigning, I remember, William Ruto was not endorsing specific candidates, especially in regions that were either cosmopolitan or regions that belonged to other parties. When he went to Bungoma, he would endorse Lusaka as governor, who is a Fort Kenya candidate. And then for positions, for member of parliament positions where there were Ford Kenya, UDA, and even ANC candidates, he kept silent. And he left it to the people. So I believe that part of the reason why these parties remained in Kenya Kwanza is because of the freedom they were given to field candidates. If they were told to not to field candidates in some regions, again they were going to be dissatisfied, and we would have seen them cross to Azimio. Yes.
Your honest opinion, do you think actually that Musalia Mudavadi is losing popularity in Western?
I believe he has lost. He has gradually lost from was it in 2003 or 2004, 2003 when he was made 2002. He was made a vice president for a short period of time. And then 2007, I think, was his peak. He was at the peak of his career when they were in the Pentagon. And I think he was ranked as number 2 under Raila Odinga. After that, I want to believe that Musalia has not done enough to continue building his brand and building his national image. Yes, he is a cool guy. He has a national figure. He has the respect of all Kenyans, but he has not come out as a strong leader who can stand independently. And of course, they say politics is local; it starts at home. For him, I think consistently it has been clear that he cannot control his own backyard. He cannot control his own village, his own ward, his own constituency. And I want to believe that that is why the entire Western region is not really solidly behind him.
When you talk about him losing popularity, and of course him not doing quite enough to sustain the popularity or to have the whole Western or even some including his own home backyard, to be with him, to be behind him. And even there are times that, of course, he has been accused when he was in NASA coalition by Edwin Sifuna, that these are people, that is Moses Wetangula and Musalia Mudavadi, they do not want to, they always want to be spoon-fed. I want to ask you, what is your honest opinion? What do you think that actually has happened, or what is in Musalia Mudavadi's politics that has made him actually decline in terms of popularity in Western? And what could actually he do, or what is it that he lacks? Is it financial muscles? Is it people? Is generally, what is your honest opinion about his decline?
That is quite difficult, but I want to believe that it is more about his character, his personality. He's a cool guy, he's a polite guy. He doesn't come out as aggressive as other politicians do. And most of the times he wants to look neutral, even in instances where he should not be neutral. You remember in 2018 when Raila shook hands with Uhuru Kenyatta. Musalia Mudavadi had a perfect opportunity of taking over the leadership of NASA and steering the opposition, given that he was dissatisfied with the decision of Raila to shake hands. He had a perfect chance to keep speaking, keep communicating as a leader of opposition, not necessarily as a person who is officially opposition leader, but as somebody who is filling a gap. Between 2018 and 2022, there was no opposition in Kenya. Mudavadi only joined William Ruto in January. Was it in January or December 2021? Before that time, he was nowhere. He was neither in government or in opposition. I want to believe that that really contributed to his decline. He has had so many opportunities of coming out as a pair of hands. That was his slogan when he formed a Money National Coalition. He said he's a safe pair of hands. Now, you know, you cannot be safe in all circumstances. Sometimes you need to come out as somebody who can actually punch where you need to punch. For instance, between 2018, 2019, 2020, so many things happened. Raila kept silent because he was in a good relationship with the president. The deputy president was in between. He had a perfect chance of coming out as a strong leader, and maybe he would have been a third horse in this election. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Naibei. I believe and I hope that we get another chance to talk about the politics of this nation, about the personalities. Of course, we are asking, what can Mudavadi do to gain his lost ground, to gain his lost mojo, like the mojo that he had in politics? What can he do? And generally, there are a lot of questions around the succession politics to 2022, which I believe will arise, and we will get to discuss more of this. Even the Kalonzo factor, should even Azimio la Umoja win. But for now, we call it a night, and I want to thank you so much, Mr. Eric Naibei. Maybe if you could give us your parting shot for this discussion tonight, what we just want to tell Kenyans, of course, and what you generally think about what we're having now. Because actually, what we are having, we are in a neck-to-neck, that is, it's in the presidential tallying, it's neck-to-neck. I don't know what happens, what Kenyans believe, or whatever they are. What do you want to tell them?
My message to Kenyans is that let's remain patient. Let's ignore those figures that are being floated and being shared by these two factions. IBC has the final say. Let's wait for the declaration that will be made by the chairperson of IBC anytime from maybe tomorrow. From what we've seen between 9th August and today, I have seen and have observed that Kenyans are really mature in terms of how we have conducted ourselves. We've not seen any incidents of violence. We've not seen people unnecessarily attacking each other. And even the candidates have restrained themselves from speaking and from inciting their supporters. So as Kenyans, I think what we can do is to remain patient. We wait for the announcement. Whoever is going to be announced, of course, will be the president. And whoever is dissatisfied has the option of going to the Supreme Court. We've had both candidates saying that they will respect the decision. So it is upon us to sustain this peace, to sustain this calmness, and to make our nation great, because I believe this election is going to define our reputation in the region, in the East African region, in Africa, and even worldwide. Let's make our name clean as Kenyans. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Naibei. And I believe also that as the results are continuing to stream, that is by the IBC, of course it shows that the race is too close to call it a dash. Of course, even hitting 50+1, there's a question whether will they reach, if they win, will they reach 50+1 threshold of becoming the next president of Kenya. But even as Kenyans wait with bated breath for the next president, elect, of course, will be announced by the IBC. Wakili here calls for peace among Kenyans. Well, this has been the insight for you, where we bring conversations, deliberate conversations, through the eyes of various political commentators, various stakeholders. And of course, this has been one of such times when we do this. Well, every night we bring you the insight. We believe that you will be with us to listen as we elucidate and expand on issues around this. Of course, this is coming to you from Good News Broadcasting System, studio headquarters here in Nairobi. My name is Wayne Kwach. My name is Eugene Kwach, and do have a great night.